Welcome. Please take a seat and join me for this calming, grounding practice. You can rest your hands on your lap, and if it feels safe to you, close your eyes and take just a few breaths to center your attention back inside your own body, or even just with your breath. When you exhale, allow your head to drop forward towards your chest. Slip the hands behind the skull, just interlace the fingers, add a little bit of weight. And as you add the weight, instead of thinking of just pulling down, I want you to push gently back with your head into your hands. So your hands and your head are working in kind of equal measure so that the back of your neck is both engaged and stretching. Let's keep that gentle effort going for one more breath. And then as you exhale, just release the effort and then release your hands. Raise the head. Softly blink your eyes open. And then if you're sitting cross-legged, you're going to push your feet a little bit forward. If you're not, you can join us in this. And we're going to sit in what's called Sukhasana, or easy cross-legged pose. So your feet are under your knees and your shins are a little bit more forward than sometimes when we sit like this. So the shins are kind of more parallel to the torso instead of back in tight. If this is hard for you or you feel that your knees are really high, just grab a blanket or a pillow and prop it under your sit bones so that your hips are higher. So let's take a moment to just elongate the spine. And then when you exhale, you're gonna lean forward over your legs. You can use your hands in front for support. And then just pause part of the way into this forward fold and just check on what's happening in your low back. We want the low back to be leaning forward of the line of the pelvis. If it's rounding back behind the hips and pushing backwards, that's a little bit less safe. So if you're in that second category, the back is pushing back, just stay here and work on sitting up tall and allowing the knees to release down. If you have a little bit more mobility in your hips and your legs and your back, and you'd like to keep moving the weight forward, this is a good time to do that. While you're here, you're gonna spread your toes just a little bit and just engage your feet. And while your feet are engaging, try to relax your hip flexors. And then take one more breath. Then find your way up. And whatever shin is in front, that's my right one, you're gonna take that out over to the side on a diagonal. The other leg, you're gonna pull it in closer to your pelvis. Again, sitting up on a blanket or a pillow might be helpful for this. Okay, let's keep the legs as is, but tip toward the straight leg. So that's my right. Put your arm on the inside of that leg and just push gently into it to help roll your chest slightly away from the floor. With the opposite hand, you're gonna place that hand somewhere on your thigh or your knee. And this is less about pushing down with that hand and more about kind of encouraging your torso to side bend over the straight leg. So we're not going for our maximum side body stretch here or maximum leg stretch, but just a slow and gentle approach to keeping the hips grounded and centered. So down, that bent leg hip is anchored to the ground. and allowing the side of the waist or the back or the inner thigh to stretch. You're going to round the torso slightly and turn it a little bit towards the ground. And then with the hand that is on the bent leg side, so that's my left hand, you're going to reach over and see if you can grab the top of your big toe or across your ankle. Just pause there, and as you begin to rotate your torso toward the straight leg, notice how the sensation of stretching has changed to a new part of your body. You can pull a little bit with that arm that's clasped on. And if the one that's inside the straight leg on the inner edge isn't really useful there, just move it somewhere else, like outside that leg, palm on the floor. Again, let the hips release down. There's oftentimes kind of an over gripping that happens in the butt muscles or the hip flexors, so try to soften there. Find your breath if you've stopped paying attention to that, and just keep it smooth and even, rhythmic. On the in-breath, just let go of your leg, your foot, whatever. Roll your torso back upright. And then you're going to lean your weight over the bent leg. So as you lean to the side, you're going to put your forearm on the floor. And then the straight leg, you're going to turn the toes down toward the ground and slide that leg back so that it's in line with your hip. So now if you could see yourself from above, your straight leg, foot and hip and the same shoulder on that side would all be in a straight line. So that's my right side if you're looking at this image. Then that arm can reach overhead if that feels good to you, and just kind of push through the sole of the foot, stretch to the arm, and open the top side of your body. From here, we're going to sweep the top arm around, and we're going to bend the straight leg, so my right leg, and we're going to catch the foot for a thigh stretch. So if you can, drop that knee down on the ground so that it's supported. So in my case, I have the foot off the ground right now, but the knee on the ground. And this may be plenty of sensation of stretch for you, or you may find, and I'm just gonna rotate around for a moment so you can see this. You may find that putting your toes on the floor and kind of sticking the top of your foot or side of your foot to the ground gives you a better sensation, or something that's working in a way that you prefer. If you do end up in that Ardha Virasana or half hero pose and you want to deepen that stretch, you would roll more towards the ceiling, or even lie all the way back and down. Bonus points if you have a dog with you who can be your pillow like I do. So you want to find a place where you can stay that is manageable. And what I mean by that is, like, it's comfortable enough that you can hang out in it for a little bit, or you're not like shaking or holding your breath or clenching your face or any of those things. Aiming for stretch on the top of that thigh and those hip flexors. And this is where you get to practice the mental part of yoga, right? The mental part is where your mind will just want to wander off, and it might think that you need to do something else, or that you should get out of the pose, or you're bored, or any of those kind of things, which is fine. It's fine that you're thinking any of that if you are, but you're going to have the will to stay for the sake of your body for maybe like 2 or 3 more breaths. These muscles can take a while to let go. If you did roll onto your back or anything like that, you're just going to kind of reverse how you got here. So you would turn kind of forward away from the back, so that you can clear that top foot and straighten it out. And we're gonna sit back up, we're gonna turn that straight leg, toes toward the sky, and then we're gonna roll around so that we're facing that leg. Once we get to facing that leg, we're gonna lift the bent knee so that that foot is flat on the mat. Walk it forward so it's more out by your calf, not super close to your hips. Then hands are gonna come behind your pelvis, turn them out, roll the shoulders back and lift the chest. Now you're welcome to stay here, sort of a long spine, back bend type shape, or to lift your hips, kind of stomping down onto the bent leg, rolling the shoulders back, and then maybe reaching out through the ball of the straight leg foot into a version of Purvottanasana. Okay, if you lifted, sit back down and then stretch out both legs straight. Sit up above your hips. Again, a blanket under the pelvis would be easier to help if your low back is tending to slump back. Then pop your hips up on some elevation, that'll make it easier for you. On the in-breath, sweep the arms overhead. Another indication is if the hip flexors grip, you might want to sit up on a lift. Exhale, fold forward, reach for the tops of your feet, your big toes, sides of your feet. You could even use a yoga belt here to lasso the soles of the feet. On the exhale, lengthen out through the spine, and then softly release the head forward. And even though it is dipping down, just have a small memory of what it felt like when you had your hands behind your skull at the beginning of this practice and you were just pressing enough into your hands that the back of your neck was slightly engaged. To keep that little bit of tone, soften the hip flexors, but squeeze the quad muscles, the thighs, to straighten your legs. And quiet the mind. That's a big part of creating this sense of calm, is to just empty the mind of its busyness by having the will to stay and be patient and compassionate with your body. And then when you inhale again, you're going to walk yourself back upright. And like me, you may have turned in a variety of different directions on your mat. And also like Ember, who has turned onto her back as well. We're going to sit back to cross-legged. So I started facing along edge of my mat, and I'm going to do that again. Now, I had the right leg in front before, so I'm going to switch to the left. I would suggest that you do the same. Sit in Sukhasana. Feet are under the knees roughly. Shins are forward so that they're kind of parallel to the front of your chest. And the knees are a little narrower than like Siddhasana. Sometimes we sit that way. Take a breath. Slow yourself down. Lean forward. Stop part way. Check in with your low back and be the judge for yourself. You have that knowledge. You are empowered to make that choice. Is this the place for you to be? And you can back up too. There's no rule that says you have to go deeper. Like, I don't want to glorify that more is better, because it's not. Sometimes it is, but not always. So go where your body, where you need to be. Use your discernment. Take a couple more breaths there. This options, willingness, and ability to choose goes a long way towards helping with our sense of calm and ease also. Right? When we feel that we have no choice or that we're helpless, that can be really overwhelming. So just acknowledge that. How nice is it that you actually get to decide? Come on back up to sitting. The front leg, like again I said, that's my left leg. It goes out to the side. It's kind of on a diagonal. And then we're pulling the right leg in closer, so more like Siddhasana. Lift the hips up onto something if you're feeling like this is really difficult, if your knees bending or you're gripping in your hips or anything like that. You're going to take your arm against the inside of your straight leg. You can kind of push just a little bit. We're going to side bend. It's just a subtle amount of side bending, and push with that arm to turn the torso away from the ground. So we're starting with that a little bit upright position. You're going to bring your right hand, or whatever hand is on the bent leg side for you, to somewhere between your knee and your hip. And you're thinking less about like forcing that knee down and more a little bit of leverage to help lean the torso over to the side. And then something else that you can do, and this is kind of in the line of energetic healing or Reiki, is through your own hand, through your own touch, you can suggest to your body to be calm and grounded. You can tell your body that it's okay, you're okay, it's safe right now. And what I notice is if I go too deep in a pose, like physically I could actually go a lot farther than I'm leaning right now, but if I do that and I make the outside look really like extreme and bendy, I can't get the sense of calm that I get when I'm not so deep in the pose. So when the calm comes, my body lets go on a different level that helps the nervous system. And sometimes then a deeper experience happens. Maybe then my body will lean into the pose more on its own. Okay, so for this next part, we're going to both round the spine, so like flex your front and bow in a little bit. And then we're also gonna twist down to face the ground. And so once you've done that, you're gonna sweep that arm around. Again, this is my right arm, but the side that's on the bent leg. It's going to come around and go for the foot or the shin. So like on this side, this is my tighter side. I can't quite reach my toe yet. So I'm going to grab my ankle and I'm going to do what I just told you. I'm going to practice what I preach. Like I could physically pull harder and go deeper, but that triggers my nervous system into a response that I don't want. So I'm going to wait until that feeling of calmness and ease comes. If it doesn't come, I might have to consider backing up a little bit. Okay, I just got it, and that's going to allow me to move my other arm to the outside of the knee and to just gently twist and face the straight leg a little bit more. So the nervous system is always practicing what's called neuroception. It's looking around at information in the environment, inside you, outside you. And sometimes it's responding appropriately, sometimes it's reacting from old patterning that might have to do with past experiences or something like that. And we need to be better stewards of our nervous systems, in my opinion. So that's all we're doing here, just learning how to be calm, even while we're having strong sensation, perhaps, of stretching. Start to bring the torso back upright. Whew. And then you're gonna lean over the bent leg. So for me, that's the right. And you put your forearm down, and then that straight leg's gonna kick back so that you're creating kind of a straight line between your top leg, your hip, your head. You can reach out through the top arm. I'm near the wall. If you're near a wall, it sometimes feels good to actually touch the wall and kind of push into it to help you open up. If you don't like that and you're near a wall, you can also just bend your elbow. Give yourself a smooth, steady, even breath. Release the top arm and bend the top leg. Catch the foot if you can. Now, I didn't mention this on the other side, but if this is hard for your knees, you can either lasso it with like a scarf or a yoga belt, or you could just put your foot down on the ground with your knee bent. Don't hold it. And work on scooping your tail to lengthen your hip flexors. Now remember, the options for more depth are to drop the foot onto the mat. And again, I think I'm going to just turn around and let you see that. And you may stay on your side there, or there may be the urge to start to roll a little bit more toward the ceiling to get more into that thigh stretch. And then start to attend to what's happening, not just in your physical body, but deeper than that. I mean, your nerves are part of your physical body, but this is more related to your energetic body. What's happening in the nervous system? What's the reaction right now? Is it calm? Is how deep you are in the pose affecting that? Good job just for looking, for being curious. The nervous system is, this buzzword maybe you've heard is there's neuroplasticity. Like, it's actually moldable. So simply by using our awareness, noticing our reactions, and when we push too hard or not hard enough, we can help change how we respond to circumstances. Let's give this side just a couple more breaths. And just come out however it's easiest for you. Swing that leg around, the one that was bent back, so it's straight. And sit upright. Lean the hands back. You can turn them out. And the bent leg, it comes upright and forward. So your foot is going to be kind of closer to your calf than way back by your hips. So same as before, this is a great position. You can just stay here and work on lengthening the spine, especially if you're a little bit tighter in your legs or you have any challenges in your wrists or shoulders for that matter. But you may consider doing Purva Tanasana, the stretch of the front body, by lifting your hips and pushing into the hands and the bent leg, squeezing the butt muscles a bit to lift up, and then roll the head back and maybe stretch out through the toes on the straight leg. Try not to cringe. This is usually an uncomfortable pose for most people. Okay, sit back down and stretch out both legs. I am enjoying feet hip width apart, but you can go wider or narrower, up to you. Wider is usually a little easier on the back, so if you're one of the people who has trouble sitting up straight or has any disc issues in the low back, then upright's a great option. Just trying to sit up straight with your legs engaged but not gripping. That's some work. If you're more limber and it's easy for you to do that, you can take your arms overhead and then reach out for your feet. Now, this time in this posture of leaning forward, when you breathe in, you're gonna lift up your spine and make it like the halfway lift that we usually do in sun salutations. Keep the length, and when you exhale, widen out the elbows, lead with the chest, lean over the legs, lengthening the spine, and eventually allowing the head to fall forward with that little memory of engagement in the back of the neck. And that way you're not collapsing the head forward, closing the throat, or anything like that. And I just want to say that these changes in the nervous system are responses kind of a little bit more stimulated, a little bit less stimulated. These are normal, natural sequences that happen. Many times we shift through them throughout the day. And what's important is that when we have a moment where we're kind of triggered into fight or flight or even shutdown, that we are able to return ourself to a more regulated or calm state, which might mean we have mobility. We actually can get out of that lethargy, or it might mean that we can stop feeling so anxious or triggered. That's how we build resiliency, right? Is being able to come back from a state that's challenging into a more regulated state. Okay, let's roll back up. And you're gonna lie down, take a short shavasana. I'm gonna grab a bolster for my knees, and you might wanna try that, it's up to you. And just do whatever else you need to do if you aren't feeling settled or comfortable. Move my back and adjust as needed. If your low back is kind of talking to you, then rolling the chest a little bit open, kind of tucking the shoulders back might help, in addition to the prop under the knees. So old school yoga had kind of a militant approach in some ways about, don't move in Shavasana. Make the pose look perfectly a certain way. And this may or may not have helped the nervous system. It may or may not have helped with the calming. So for instance, I had an eye pillow on my eyes, and for some reason that did not feel safe today. I wanted to know that I could open my eyes if I felt scared. I don't know why today that's happening, but it is. So while you rest for just a few more moments, I just want to remind you that yes, we're trying to be somewhat still and integrate what we've experienced by lying in Shavasana, lying down. But you are not a statue, you're not a robot, and you do have feelings and needs, and I want to encourage you to meet those. Okay, start to find your way back to your breath. A big sigh of an exhale can help create that calm if you're having any agitation. Having a visit with a pet, that can help too. And if you're feeling down, depressed, lethargic, when you breathe in, hold slightly at the top of your inhale. Just pause for like 1 or 2 moments while you're full of breath, and then let the breath go. Start to move fingers and toes to stretch and reawaken. And then you can bend your knees and roll over onto either side. Just give a pause there for a breath or 2 until you're kind of back a little more awake. Push into the floor. And come back up to a seated posture. So as you go about your day or your week, I just invite and encourage you to continue with this this awareness of what's happening on a deeper level. We're so busy these days that sometimes we don't catch all those many adjustments that the nervous system is constantly making. We're inundated with like noise all the time. So be compassionate with yourself, and if you learn anything new, then great. And if you don't learn anything new, well, great. At least you're looking and you're trying. So I appreciate you being here today, and I'm very grateful for you. Have a really good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.